welcome everyone to another podcast. Today we have Emma Rush, guitarist, and go check her out on the YouTube and listen to her music. She's also part of projects with Azuline Duo, and she's working with a musician called Sarah Trifacante who plays the flute. So check that out. So now we're going to get to know a little bit about her. Now, you said over the past decade, Emma,
Mhm.
you've established yourself as one of Canada's preeminent classical guitarists. Now, you're known for your innovative programming and powerful stage presence, along with your warm sound and virtuosic technique. An event with you is one to remember, especially when we watch you. Could you please go back to the beginning when you had a desire that you wanted to follow your heart music and you wanted to it's the guitar. Let's try that one.
Now, well, that's you basically just summed it up. I played a lot of different instruments when I was growing up. I played the piano, the cello, the oboe, and then in high school, I just kind of drifted away from that. And when I was done high school, I was I don't know, a little bit aimless for a while. And I was, doing this and that and trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I had a couple friends that started studying classical guitar in Hamilton at Mohawk College. And I heard, the sound of classical guitar and I loved it. And then I picked it up and it just made sense to me. So I tried, playing some rock guitar before, and quite honestly, I was not very good at it. And then classical guitar, though, just seemed to really click for me. So and I could read music already, and I'd grown up sort of playing classical music, so that phrasing was already in my ear. So it felt like a great fit, and I decided basically immediately that that's what I was going to pursue. So it was,
Let,
and I worked my butt off for the next, well, until now. But at that time, I practiced like crazy so I could go to university for guitar the next year.
my sister attended Mohawk for nursing.
Oh, cool.
So she graduated like 1980 and she became a nurse. And that's amazing that you and I have that in common.
I just had some friends that were studying there, but I wound
Mhm.
up teaching there for about a decade. I was teaching there from 2011 to 2021. I was the classical guitar instructor there.
That's amazing. So when you teach someone to play the guitar, for instance, how do you make them learn and stick with it so they're not, I don't get it. I don't understand. Where do I put my finger? Where do I strum? What's a fret? Why is the word for anger on there and all this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if I really have a good answer because I'm not very good at that stuff. So I wound up teaching sort of more intermediate and advanced students over the teaching part of my career. Because maybe I just don't have the patience for the very beginning stuff. But I find with teaching, it's always just finding a way to explain something so that it makes sense. So you have to be really creative, and sometimes you have to go back to the same concept like many, many times and just attack it from a different angle, and then it'll click. So I remember from my own experiences, as a student, there were things that my teachers told me over and over again, and finally there would be one time where it was just the right way they said it or the way they connected it to the music, where all of a sudden it sort of fell into place.
And you became the classical guitarist that you are today.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, do you have a certain preference of guitar that you prefer to play with?
Well, I just got a new guitar, so right now I definitely prefer that one. So I have a beautiful new guitar made by a woman called Yoshia De Young. She makes very high-end, beautiful, beautiful instruments. She's in Wakefield, just outside Ottawa. And so that's yeah, it's just a stunning guitar. So it's got some fancy technology. It's a double top guitar, so it has two very thin soundboards. And the craftsmanship is just incredible, and so is the sound, of course.
And how does the sound differentiate between when you're playing it in a acoustic, hold on, in an acoustic venue to a venue where the sound doesn't resonate? Like, do you find that you prefer to play guitar in an environment has better acoustics?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. So when you're in a room with great acoustics, it's almost like the room becomes part of the instrument, or part of the music, because you're able to really work with the room and use the reverb it's got. And it can be, yeah, a bit harder if you're, performing in a room where the sound is quite dead. But yeah, it's sometimes, I've played in lots of beautiful old halls or old churches, and the sound can just be so good that it's becomes, a really inspiring part of the concert.
I love that. I love the
Mhm.
inspiring sound of the concert. I love the sound of the guitar. I saw a video um, in 2030 classical guitarists playing um, a Jenkins song. I think it was the same song that you hear on the Diamonds commercial.
Mhm.
And all of them are playing in sync, in unison. I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. I'm also familiar with another player. He does a lot of. I don't know if you're familiar with what bassists do with the guitar, and it's called guitar slapping. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've ever done any slapping on your guitar.
No, we use all different kinds of techniques with classical guitar. So anything like beyond the sort of standard plucking and strumming, we call like extended techniques. But there's all kinds of different ways where we do like slapping techniques on the string. We do different like percussive techniques on the body of the guitar. All kinds of different harmonics. So we try and I especially like I always try and look for a repertoire that's really using all the possibilities of the instrument. So I like to just sort of explore everything it can do.
How about this? Can you do that?
So no, I have not played it behind my head, but the day is young. Could happen.
But you could.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would be a little bit nervous that I'd drop my guitar, but
How about blindfolded?
yes, I have done that. And sometimes if I'm really trying to, test a new piece, I might do something like that. But I wind up playing, most of my concerts with my eyes closed anyways. So the
Yeah,
blindfold isn't
because
too much of a test.
yeah, obviously because you're distracted usually by the people watching and things happening. So if you know where the strings are, you would play guitar. Like I when I was well, I still am, but when during the I said during the pandemic, before
Mhm.
the pandemic, I do a lot of singing, and I also sang. Well, you're familiar with my area, I think 20 minutes from Toronto.
Mhm.
Um, we
Of
have
course.
a place called the Living Arts Center, and I played there. Like I played my voice, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
What's up? I am a tenor, and I sang there. And usually it's better if I wear dark sunglasses when I'm
Yeah.
singing because people kind of distract me sometimes. But you can't do that all the time because people think, "Oh, look, it's a blind singer up there." You don't want to do that. You want to be confident. So, um, but yeah. So it said, I'm amazed at your accolades here. So you toured a four-city tour in China. You started with the Altamira Shanghai International Guitar Festival, and
Mhm.
then you had appearance at major other guitar festivals, including Festival de Guitarras in Lagos de Marina in Mexico
Mhm.
and the Nyköping Guitar Seminarium in Sweden, and then
Mhm.
Germany. Everyone knows who Emma Rush is because it's sort of like you're in Japan and someone said, I like to listen to Emma Rush. It's amazing to
Well,
get your name out there by playing everywhere. How did that come
yeah.
to be?
I mean, I've been so lucky with my performance career. I love traveling for work, and I love playing in different places. And it's the guitar community is quite small in a way, right? For classical guitar, it's kind of its own niche, so it does allow you to make a lot of sort of international connections. But yeah, I've been super lucky. This spring, I was back in Sweden at the Swedish Guitar and Lute Festival. And I was actually in Sweden earlier this year as well. But yeah, and I've had some other recent, well, I guess upcoming international appearances. But I also I crisscross Canada pretty constantly, and it's a big mission for me to play in a lot of rural and remote areas, which I do all over Canada. And that's a big part of my touring that I think is just as exciting as going to China or going to Mexico. I mean, just bringing live classical music to places that maybe don't have that opportunity sometimes ever is really, really valuable, I think, for the audience and for me.
Yeah, I can understand that, Emma. You're playing all these different accolades in places like Mexico and then Germany, and you're going to Sweden and then Eastern Canada, and then you debut as an Atlantic artist. Now you keep playing and playing, and suddenly during a performance, your strings break. What do you do when that happens?
I don't know. It's never happened. So nylon strings don't tend to break as easily as regular steel strings do. So we don't run into it too often. I did have an experience in Winnipeg last year playing for the Winnipeg Guitar Society, and one of my strings just kept slipping. And I'd never had this before, but it just wasn't sort of tied on there properly, not wound properly on the peg. And I basically had to do a little a little comedy improvisation for a few minutes while I got it sorted out. But, I feel very, very comfortable on stage. I perform a lot. So I feel like basically anything can go wrong and I'll handle it. Like I don't worry about things like that. So, the strings can break, something can happen, and I'll just, the audiences is all, they're always very kind. So they'll have patience if something goes wrong, and I'll just try and fix it as quickly as I can.
When you send out your guitar to get cleaned and fixed and maintained, or do you do that on your own?
I do a lot of it on my own, and then I've got a great luthier that I use for repairs whenever my instruments need that.
And I know that violinists, they use something called rosin.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something like that you use on your guitar?
We don't need that. So the rosin is basically, I think it helps the bow grip the strings, right, on a violin. But what we're aiming for with classical guitar, so we play with our nails, right? It's not a pick. So
Oh,
every
wow.
classical guitarist has long nails on their right hand and short nails on their left. And the nails on the right hand, we file away obsessively, making sure it's the perfect shape. And we want it just to be smooth as glass. So really like buffing all those nail surfaces and making sure it's like the precise shape and angle. So it just glides right off the string and just kind of defines the sound. So we never want it to be too naily or like have that same kind of feeling. Like if you could hear a pick hitting the string, it should just be pure string sound that the finger helps define.
Yeah, but I don't know why you don't use a pick, because I've heard you can tell when someone uses nails because you got this kind of like nails upon a chalkboard type sound. Like something that one of the songs that Sade would play, or um, they use like their nails instead of a pick. Do you have a reason why you don't use a pick, or do you think you just prefer not to?
Well, if somebody is using their nails and getting a sound like a chalkboard, they're doing it wrong. Because as I said, like we're constantly like making sure our nails are smooth as glass and that you don't hear any nails sound at all. And obviously we wouldn't have like a whole genre of guitar where we're existing just to make a crappy sound. But yeah, I mean, the reason basically is with a pick, you are playing basically like a single line at once, or you're strumming a whole chord at once. And with classical guitar, you're often playing like several different voices. So it's more akin to playing like piano music than it would be to strumming a guitar, right? So you need all the fingers available to you to play quite a lot of notes at once, or play, different lines. Like we'll have on a classical guitar playing like a bass line and the melody at the same time and the notes in between. So just using a pick won't cut it.
Yeah, I've spoken to many musicians who play the guitar, a lot of bassists, a lot of classical guitarists, and they have their preference, sort of like the Gibson. They have the Taylors, they have the Stratocasters, and then uh, there's also others who like to play guitar made from either a pine or made from, well, I think I know a couple who play with a balsa
Mhm.
guitar. But Do you think that you would be able to pick up a bass guitar and play it, or is it the reason because it's got 4 strings and the guitar has 6 strings? You think those missing 2 strings would be an issue for you?
Oh, you can adapt to things like that. Like it's the same as there's some repertoire for classical guitar that uses a 7 or 8 string guitar. Um, or there's if we're playing a Baroque guitar, it's got 5 strings, but they're all doubled. Or acoustic players play 12-string steel string guitar, or what was I going to say? 12-string guitars. And so yeah, you can adapt to those things. But again, it's like everything is a specialized technique, right? So I'm not, there's different ways to attack every instrument. So wouldn't be a seamless transition, but I could certainly like pick my way through a couple of bass lines.
So if you walked into a room that had like 100 different guitars, different woods, would you be able to just choose one at random or close your eyes and choose one and play it?
Yeah. I mean, most guitars are, there's not too much, too much difference in the basic makeup of the guitar.
What about those guitars that have no strings? They just have buttons for the chords. Could you play one of those?
A keytar?
A
I suppose,
keytar.
yeah, I probably could because I have a background in piano, long before I started playing guitar. So, but I've got my hands full with the strings, so I don't think I'm going to make a foray into keytar anytime soon.
You recently appeared in the McMichael Gallery's Group of 7 Guitar Project documentary alongside Bruce Coburn, Jesse Cook, and Don Ross. Wow.
I actually we were all featured in this documentary, but it wasn't us playing together. But I did later on, as part of that project, I was playing with Don Ross at an event at the McMichael, and we had a great time.
Would you have liked to have played with Jesse Cook? Because he's a fantastic guitar player.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you find for your flautist Sarah Trificante to create As Your Lean Duo? How did that come to be?
Oh, we were teaching at the same university and sharing a teaching studio. So we had a coffee one day and started talking about the idea of maybe putting a duo together, and we really gelled. So yeah, that was 10 years ago. It's our 10-year anniversary as a
Amazing.
duo. And yeah, so yeah, we really enjoy working together. We've done a lot of touring together, and we've got 2 albums we've put out. And that's a really fun project for both of us.
So what was her playing the flute? What was that like for you? As you played the guitar, what was it like?
Well, I mean, I love making music with other musicians, and she's a fantastic musician. She's a really skilled flutist. So it was great.
Yeah, so yeah, you went all over the world. This is amazing. Wow. And now you created this album in 2016 called Romanza with Azulin Duo. So Emma, share with us about your new album that's coming out soon, being released, and when.
Yeah, the new album came out mid-July, and it's called A Dream of Color. And this was a really special project for me. It's 7 new Canadian pieces that I commissioned. So I got 7 different composers to write pieces for me, and each piece is inspired by the paintings of William Blair Bruce. And Bruce was an impressionist painter who actually shares a hometown with me. He's from Hamilton, or was from Hamilton. And I've got a family connection to him as well. So he's a third cousin, or a first cousin thrice removed on my mom's side. So it's a distant connection, but I grew up, hearing about him and seeing his paintings, and like, the homes of my grandparents, my aunts and uncles. And then also the art gallery here in Hamilton was created with a donation of Bruce's paintings. So I grew up seeing them there as well. And I just always, had this idea about just sort of wondering what would happen if we tried to find a way to express these impressionist paintings with sound. So each composer on this project picked a different painting and basically did a musical representation of it.
Wow, that's
And
interesting.
it's yeah, the result was so cool. I think the pieces, like the composers had different levels of familiarity with the instruments. Some wrote for guitar all the time, some, you know, were not that familiar with it. And they all have different styles, so the collection is super different. What I think is the record just has a real mood. Like every piece kind of has a real atmosphere and tell the story of what's happening in the painting in a really clear way. But it's just like the composer just like really got into the art and reflected on it and just tried to kind of capture the spirit of those paintings.
So you remind me of that Starry, Starry Night by Van Gogh and the
Yeah.
song Vincent by Don McLean.
Hmm.
So if someone plays the painting in front of you, could you actually like learn, you could play that? Is that what you're trying to say? You could play that painting?
I guess something like that. I mean, it's just sort of they're just related, you know. It's like I mean, what I did for the CD release, and this is what I'm doing while I tour this album, is while I'm playing each piece, I have a large projection of the painting that happens behind me on stage, and that creates a really interesting sort of immersion for the audience, right? Where they get to be really into the painting, really into the music, and kind of connect the two, right? And just see how the piece of music evolved from the piece of art and how the two are connected.
Yeah,
It's
because that'd be,
really cool.
yeah, it is cool. Because I'm thinking, how would you play the Mona Lisa?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not a literal representation.
Be kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so it was said that Rush's technique is flawless throughout. Are you trying to live that out? Because what if, like, you're playing all these, all these shows and performances, and meanwhile you're thinking, okay, they're supposed to think my technique is flawless. Oh
I
no,
don't
pressure.
dwell on that. I Flawless is not a goal for me, for sure, in on stage or in any part of my life, really. So my goal with the concert is like I'm not going to get too hung up if there's a note that doesn't sound as clearly as I wanted or something like that. I prefer just to think about the whole the whole experience of the concert, and every concert is about what you have to say musically and how you connect with the audience. So for me, if I manage to get my message across and I feel like the audience and I had a good time and we all created like a special evening or afternoon or whatever together, then for me that's success. I'm not going for flawless.
Is there still learning curve that you could um, gather from? Like all musicians can't literally say I'm perfect, so I don't need any more training. Is there more that you could learn and more that you could offer in performances?
Yes, there's more for everybody to learn and everyone to offer. So I don't know anybody, like you said, I don't know anybody in my field or anybody else in classical or any other music that's just like, yep, I'm done. It's always, and I think this is actually the same with every kind of art as well, right? You're always just trying to strive to reach a new level and to develop artistically in different ways. I mean, everybody I know that's a professional in the arts is always just working like crazy to just push themselves, really work on their artistic development, and always exploring new things. And that's the great thing about the arts, right? It's you can't ever be done. There's always new things to explore. There's new things to create. There's new things to imagine. So it's a constantly evolving process.
What kind of encouragement did you get from your family when the day you had a guitar and that you wanted to learn the guitar? Was there anybody against you learning a new thing?
Oh no, not at all. No, I have a very supportive family, and they're very musical as well. So they had no issues.
Well, I remember one musician I spoke to, he's a guitarist, and he said that he thought that when he picked up the guitar and he played, it was glorious, angelic sounds were coming out of the guitar. And then there was nothing like that. So he got to the point where he took it and he busted it and he threw it out the window. Another musician I spoke to, they said that they found the guitar in a dumpster, and they started
Mhm.
learning to play it. And when she came home, it was gone. And she said, "Where's my guitar?" And her mother said, "I threw it out."
Mm.
So you have many people who don't even get encouraged to say, you're not touching that thing. You're not going to play
Yeah.
that thing. So it's kind of nice to know that you picked up the guitar and you had no flack from anybody. They were all for you. They encouraged you, and look where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely surprised because, as I said, it was like such a spur of the moment decision for me. I just found the guitar and decided right away that that's what I wanted to pursue. So there was definitely some surprise, for my parents, but it was, yeah, no problem there. And right away, I had such a great life with the guitar, even right from the get go. I went and did my undergraduate degree in Halifax in Nova Scotia, which I loved. And even after my first year there, I started going to Europe for guitar festivals. And then I wound up moving there. I lived in Germany for 5 years to do my master's. And since then, of course, the guitar has just taken me all across Canada and around the rest of the world. So it's yeah, I can't see that anybody should be disappointed in the in the results of my choice.
What if as Azuline Duo, Sarah Trificante, of course, we can keep saying her name. I like her name, Trificante.
Mhm.
Um, what if she couldn't show up during a performance? What do you do? Is it sort of like the show must go on, or do you cancel the whole thing?
Um, well, I have never experienced that, but I suppose if she was unable to come, I would just offer the presenter a solo concert and or we would just reschedule.
Yeah.
I think that would just be I mean, it doesn't really happen that often that she would be in a car accident or something and unable
No.
to come, and our concerts are usually booked a year or two in advance. So it's not like there's some conflicts that will come up. We're able to manage.
That's interesting. So how far in the book are you?
Usually about 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, not everything. Like there's things that come up. Um, but a lot of presenters book their shows for, their seasons like a year or two in advance. So I've got things, on the calendar for 2025.
Wow.
But then there's still lots of space. So there's things that just, pop up here and there. I'm not, solidly booked for those 2 years.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, and especially with us, we always book guests in advance. It's sort of like I'm booked to the end of December, which is good. And I'm going to be celebrating the second year anniversary of our podcast, which is nice.
Hey, fantastic.
Almost 150 episodes. So I'm really happy
Congratulations.
about that. But
Yeah.
I still want to get out there and, perform again because people say, "Why do you keep telling all your guests this? They know all they have to do is watch an episode and they hear from you." I'm an opera tenor and I learn a lot of Italian and German and I sing in French and I really enjoy that. And I enjoy talking to musicians and I enjoy getting feedback from them and learning all about them. And uh, and then I was listening to Danza della Molinaro. So what from Azuline Duo? Everyone should check out Azuline Duo with Sarah Trificanti and Emma Rush. And I love the flute. I really love the flute. Um,
Mhm.
what is your songwriting process like? How do you how do you put together, for instance, Danza della Monera? How long did you work on that before you were able to record it?
Well, that is written by the great Spanish composer Manuel de Falla, but we arranged it. It was originally for orchestra, and we arranged that for flute and guitar. But it depends on the piece. We've had things we've had to put together very quickly for recording for one reason or another. But in my experience, I mean, I've got I think I should know. I've got 4 solo albums now, including the one that just came out, and then the 2 with the duo. But I find it's if you can sit with the pieces a bit longer, it's the more you play them, the better they get. So depends. Just depends on the piece and the timeline.
I mean, like I was thinking of grabbing a bass guitar and learning it. But someone said that you should just pick up an acoustic guitar, learn to play that, and then you'll be able to pick up a bass and just play that. But there's just so many different instruments out there. You even
Yeah.
have professional didgeridoos out
Hmm.
there. And
For
an
sure.
Australian didgeridoo, it's like that strange sound on it. So who do you have currently playing on your music list? Is it all classical artists, all guitarists, or do you just go out and listen? I like listening to Elton John.
Oh, yeah, I listen to all kinds of things. So recently I've been listening to, well, a lot of Judas Priest, early Judas Priest. And what else? I've been listening to some new albums from my friends. So there's a beautiful album of Swedish Baroque music that the theorbist Johan Luffing and the flutist Yue, oh, I can't remember her last name. But they've got Flaugissimo Duo, and they just put out a beautiful CD of Swedish Baroque music. So I'm all over the place. I listen to all kinds of stuff.
Do you like listening to pop like Britney Spears, Taylor Swift?
Yeah. So I
Have
mean,
you
it's not always my go-to. I'm definitely a rock and roller in terms of pop music, but everything. I listen to tons of Motown, all kinds of stuff.
How do you feel about cover songs? You ever managed to play a few cover songs from your favorite artists?
Well, I have an album that came out in 2016 called Canadiana, and that's all classical guitar arrangements of beautiful Canadian folk songs. So, well, I mean, folk singer songwriters. So there's some tunes from Joni Mitchell, couple tunes from Gordon Lightfoot, and also a Stan
Stan
Rogers
Rogers.
tune. Yeah,
Yep.
alongside a kind of fingerstyle guitar suite that was written for me by the Toronto composer William Beauvais. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was my foray into pop music. But
Yeah.
those are beautiful, beautiful arrangements. I really love the way they turned out on that album. But I mean, for me, I'm basically always playing cover tunes, right? Because I'm not a composer, so I'm playing classical music that's composed by other people and interpreting it. So it's basically always somebody else's work.
I like that. I know that in addition to your activities was a Zuling duo, you also performed Guitar Magic concert with acoustic guitarist James Bryan from the Philosopher Kings and Prozac.
Yeah,
Wow. Philosopher Kings, my favorite group. Um, so you play high energy sets and you showcase classical and fingerstyle guitar playing, and then you put the two together. So,
yeah,
so that's amazing. You play with all these different amazing guests.
yeah.
So tell us about James Bryan.
Oh, well, James Bryan is a Toronto transplant to Hamilton. And when he landed here a few years ago, he reached out to just sort of get in touch because I was doing a lot, like presenting a lot of different guitar concerts and a summer guitar festival. Yeah, and we really hit it off and just had the idea of doing some shows together. And now we do at least a few every year, including we've got a very popular guitar Christmas show we do. But we sort of play together. I'll play a couple of my classical tunes. He'll play a couple steel string stuff. He's like an incredible steel string guitarist, fingerstyle guy. And then we play some stuff together. So we play some Latin music, sort of all kinds of different stuff, and it's really fun just to sort of put together, the sound of the steel string guitar with the sound of the nylon string guitar, and just sort of have fun.
Yeah, I bet you it's so fun. Like I can't wait to like I want to find either get into a band or find a duet partner like I had before and just start like I don't want to start from the ground up, but just start um performing again because the world just stopped during those times of the pandemic, and I don't know what it was like for you. It's probably like really like what you were going through. You couldn't perform anymore. I don't know if you played online, or that's when you probably created. Um, there's you a program you recorded and released in 2020 called "Wake the Sigh."
Oh, that was yeah, that was a great project. That album is, so I have a research interest, which is guitar music written by women in the 1800s. And in 2018, I went to Lübeck in Germany and did a 2-month residency there, so I could just sort of see if there was any music composed by women at that time for my instrument. Because there's not really anything that's in the guitar history books about that. So turns out there was loads of music, so I recorded that album Wake the Sigh, and it's 17 tracks. Only 2 of them were ever recorded before, so it was a really music that was I mean, I can't say I discovered it because it has existed the whole time, but I really dusted it off, and brought it back into the light after some of it probably hadn't been played for 150 years or more. So that was a really special project. So it was interesting, kind of releasing that in the middle of the pandemic, because I obviously I couldn't tour, in support of the album, but I was so lucky. I did so much online work. I was so fortunate, and of course, it's never the same to play a live stream concert or record a concert, for your laptop in your living room, but I was able to do so much virtual performing and connect with people online. So I was really lucky that I could stay quite busy, and managed to promote that record even though I couldn't get on the road.
Emma, could you let us know what your debut album, Folklorica, that takes listeners to 4 continents, which have works inspired by folk legend and folk music? Could you tell us how that was put together?
Sure. I was quite keen on finally getting a record out into the world, and felt sort of ready to do it. And I really like an album that has not necessarily a concept, but just kind of has a good flow, right? Like something that ties it together. So I started looking at just the programs that I'd been playing in my concerts and found that I had a lot of music that had some kind of inspiration from folkloric music. So music from all over the world that just kind of had different folk melodies or rhythms, or maybe was inspired by like a folk tale or song or legend. So I sort of pulled my favorite pieces out of my repertoire that sort of fit together in that sort of had a little bit of a folky flavor to them. So they're still really quite, they're all great, like classical music pieces, but there is just that sort of background where it's got a bit of a folkloric character. And that record has there's music by the Canadian composer Dale Kavanagh, who used the folk song Farewell to Nova Scotia as inspiration for her piece. There's a beautiful suite del Recuerdo, by the Argentinian composer Jose Luis Merlin. There's some Spanish music by Joaquin Rodrigo. There's a lot of variety, but again, it's just sort of strung together by that common thread.
Yeah. Do you have backup guitars just in case something happens to your one that you bring on the road?
Yeah, I didn't for years. So actually just until about 3 years ago, I only ever had one sort of main guitar. And there was only a couple times where something happened where I needed to borrow one. Um, but now I've got 3 sort of modern guitars, and then I've got a couple guitars from the 1800s, like antique guitars, and then I also have like a copy of one from the 1800s as well. It was sort of made recently, but after an old model. So I've got quite a few more in my hands these days.
Are you like those guitarists, bassists who like to have guitars on their wall?
Well, I don't do that because I prefer to control the humidity of the guitars. So unfortunately, they're in the case most of the time.
Wow. So when you're listening to another artist, what goes through your head? Like, I want to be like them. I want to play like them. I don't like the way they play. Oh, I think they made a mistake there. Do you have good ears to be able to detect all this?
Yeah, I'm never listening for people's mistakes. I'm just listening to the expression, I would say. Um, but I mean, it just depends on who I'm listening to. It's always great I mean, I get a lot of inspiration from listening to other musicians. So there's always things to take away from any recording or any performance that stay with you, whether it's what you like or what you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, our friend Michelle LeBlanc, she lives in Nova Scotia, and when she plays the guitar, she plays with her eyes closed. She
Hmm.
knows over 90 songs, and when you see her playing, she's like this, and and it's like she's looking up like this, and she's get every note to the song. I'm just amazed because I don't know if you do this, but a lot of guitarists they actually look at what they're doing, and then you have some that just look like this and they're playing, but she goes like just playing. And it's amazing that what you can do with the guitar if you know it off by hand like you do. Uh,
Hmm.
it's sort of like if and putting it behind your head. I don't know why anybody wants to put it behind their head and play it, but I've seen that, and also 6 and 7 neck guitars as well. They have like two or three, four necks, like the one of the guitarists from Cheap Trick. He
Hmm.
plays like a 3 or 4 neck guitar. What do
Right.
you think of that? Do you think it's just for aesthetic reasons, or do you think that's something you think is cool or weird? Would you ever dare to play a guitar like that?
Well, they don't really make classical guitars like that, so it's a little bit out of my realm. But I think there's all kinds of ways to experiment with instrument building, and I don't see any problem with any of it. In the end, for me, it's always the question whether you're talking about like how instruments are built or how people play or whatever. The answer or the question is just like how does it sound? So if it sounds good, who cares what it looks like or how it's made or how you're playing it, right? If you like the sounds, then that's that's the right thing.
Well, I've seen a guitar which not only just had the hole in the circuit, but they had holes all over the guitar.
Hmm.
What does that mean? Does that mean it makes the sound better? Or just for aesthetic reasons?
Oh, you can put a sound hole in different spots on the soundboard. And so people just sort of different people will construct their guitars in different ways with the idea of how the sound will, be altered. Like in my world where we're playing mostly like very, very fine handmade instruments, luthiers really know what they're doing. So if they're moving the sound hole around or something, it's for like a pretty specific reason. But again, I just, if it sounds good, that works for me.
So if someone was playing, decide I'm going to put a sock in this guitar and start playing. Would you know there was something inside the guitar by the sound?
Yeah, if you put socks in the guitar, it tends to dampen the sound a little bit.
For anything you put in the guitar would dampen the sound.
Yeah, but I mean, quite honestly, I recommend not putting things inside your guitar. Like, just put your socks in your suitcase. Um,
It's just a fun question. That's all.
yeah. Yeah, well, I know actually a colleague of mine told me a story about when he was a student and he was trying to save money on his luggage. So he actually did fill the inside of his guitar with clothes and socks and things. And then he didn't manage to pull all of them out when he got to the gig. So he was wondering why his guitar sounded so bad. And it turned out that there was socks inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen a great guitar that actually disconnects the neck.
Hmm.
I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
More people are making those these days because it's such a nightmare to have to worry about your guitar so much when you're traveling, right? Because I always bring my guitar on board on the plane, and you have to know a lot of tricks to finagle it past everybody you have to check in with to get on a plane to make sure the guitar gets on board. So it can be pretty stressful. So that idea of just having a guitar with the neck that comes off, where you can sort of fit it as a carry-on bag more comfortably, is a great one.
yeah, I don't know if you heard about that country singer who said that he had put his guitar in United Airlines and they lost it, so he wrote a song called
Yeah,
"United Breaks Guitars."
yeah, of course. I
Is
think
that why
all guitarists know that one.
is that why musicians take the guitars on the plane now because of that incident, or
Oh
it's just that
no, they've always tried to. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, but yeah, the song definitely made the rounds. But I mean, I've seen it many times, with different colleagues that have had their instruments damaged by airlines. I never have, thank goodness. Hopefully, never will. But
No,
I
hopefully
also,
not.
we all try and buy like pretty good cases too. So, in the rare event that you do have to check an instrument, hopefully it's protected enough.
Doesn't the guitar get heavier as the more you put it in a case which has an extra little bit of weight on it? Because whenever you're playing, let's say you play an hour and a half with the guitar, you got this heavy guitar, um, and I don't know if you have the harness around your neck to hold it up, but it
No.
must be really heavy at sometimes.
No, because you wind up like the way we normally play seated with a classical guitar, and so there's 3 points of contact on your body, and that's holding the guitar in place. You're not actually holding it up with your left hand, so it's yeah, it shouldn't be too exhausting to play a guitar. Sometimes it feels like it is. But we try and practice to stay like, pretty relaxed and make sure you're not doing anything funky with your posture or, um, just you sort of play in an ergonomic way and only use as much energy as you need to make the sound you want.
Yeah. Do you have any words of advice for up and coming guitarists?
Oh, what a great question. Um, Yeah, I think, well, practice, 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 of course. You have to put the work in. But aside from that, I mean, for classical guitarists, my advice is always to just explore the repertoire. And this goes for any other classical music as well, because I think we wind up hearing the same tunes over and over again. Or, for example, if you look at an orchestra program, we see the same Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, all the time. So it can, I think, just seeing what else is out there, because there's a huge amount of music that we're not playing. So the more you explore the repertoire and find, new pieces that other people aren't playing, the more you're sort of finding your own voice. And speaking of, that's also just great advice, is just to try and be true to yourself and not feel like try not to feel bossed around by the music world into fitting in a certain way. You just do what you want.
Yeah.
That's the best way to go about it.
Exactly. When you're talking about repertoire, how many songs do you know off by heart?
Oh, I don't know, loads. I mean, I play all my concerts from memory, so that's usually at least an hour of music, and then I can play several different programs. So there's a lot up there.
What's your opener?
Well, these days I'm starting most concerts with a beautiful piece. It was written in Paris in the 1820s by someone called Julia Piston. And I found this piece in the French National Library. There's only one copy of it that exists in the world. And it's a beautiful like theme and variations, and nobody knows it, but it's a fabulous piece. And it's one of the ones from my record Wake the Sigh that I'm most happy about finding, and I love playing it, and it's a great way to kick off the show.
Do you talk about it first before you play it, or you just play it and say that was?
Yeah, for the first tune, yeah, I usually just walk out and play, but then I'm pretty chatty after that. So I like to connect with the audience and tell them a lot about the pieces or the composers or about me and how I relate to the music. So I like it to be a kind of relaxed concert. There's a lot of classical music gigs that can be pretty uh, stuffy, and I don't like playing those ones. So
So is this first opener classical guitar by Julia Piston related to your closer?
Um, no, I tend to close these days. I have a beautiful suite of Argentinian music I play, and I like saving that till the end. It's a real crowd pleaser, and it's got a lot of sort of exciting technique in it. Lots of arpeggios, lots of strumming, and so it's a good way to, good way to close with a lot of energy.
So nothing in there has any like cover songs of or artists like Imagine Dragons or Elton John. It's all just classical pieces.
Yeah.
Do you ever play a concert with covers?
No, like I said, I sometimes play some tunes from my album Canadiana. So then I'm playing some Joni Mitchell. I like including a tune by her in my program. But yeah, it's not normally too much pop music in there.
You ever played one of your classical pieces and you forgot how it goes? You're like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but that's, that happens to everybody, like little memory slips. And the trick, I think, is not to worry about if you forgot something, but it's how you handle it, right? So for me, if there's a little mix up with the memory, you just cruise through it into the next part that you know, and don't worry about it, and nobody will notice.
yeah, why not? I mean, how do you deal with anxiety?
Oh, I don't get too much of it these days because I'm just sort of performing all the time. So it's such a routine for me. But the best thing you can do for performance anxiety is just make sure that you've prepared, right? So as long as you've done the work in the practice room, you know the music inside and out, you've done sort of test performances before the concerts for friends and family or whatever, as long as you've done the work to prepare, then you're going to be fine on stage. It's when for me, I mean, that's for me anyways. I know there are some people that just have, pretty intense performance anxiety no matter what. But um yeah, I think as long as you've done everything you can to feel really secure with the music, then things will be okay. And I feel like sometimes I still feel a bit nervous, but it's more like just being excited to play the gig. Like I feel like you should be kind of nervous before a concert because you care what people think about you, and you worked
Mhm.
really hard and you want it to be good. So that's an exciting thing. And of course, you're going to have some adrenaline around that. But I don't tend to get, anxiety in a negative way.
How do you deal with the negativity, like negative comments, heckling?
Oh, I don't care. That's basically it. You can't please everybody. And I mean, I don't really get heckled very often, at least not in person. Um, but like I don't get too much negative feedback. But if I do, it's not really something I concern myself with. I'm more interested in staying positive, and also, I mean, I just really believe in what I'm doing, right? And I believe in the music that I'm playing, and I believe I have something to say about that music. So I'm convinced enough about what I'm doing that if somebody else has something negative to say about it, that's not really something that's going to affect me too much.
Yeah, deal with negativity the proper way. Don't like start crying or something. I'm gonna ask you a random question. So you're playing your guitar during the performance, and someone walks up and grabs your guitar, breaks and says, "Shut up." What would your reaction be?
Well, I I mean, that's kind of so ridiculous that I'm not sure. I would probably either start laughing or start shouting. I mean, that would be pretty extreme. I can't really see that happening in my many years of playing classical guitar concerts and attending them. I've never seen that happen. So it's not like we're playing in bars, where uh, things are going to get really out of hand.
Yeah,
You
I
don't you
always
don't
thought
tend to get that much violence at a concert hall.
I always thought if I learned the bass or guitar, whatever, and that happened to me, my answer would be, "Well, you know what? I never really liked that guitar. I was about to throw it out the window and break it, but thank you for doing me a favor," and then grab my other one and start playing. That's what I would do. Was there ever a time when you thought about quitting music altogether?
Um, no, nope, I don't think so. I've been really happy with my career path, and um, yeah, I've always really enjoyed what I chose to do, and I enjoy it more and more. You know, as I the more I work as a guitarist, and um, yeah, I I'm very happy being a musician.
What do you expect fans to get from your live shows?
Oh, well, I want them to go home feeling like, of course, they had a great time. I'd like them to feel like they learned a little bit about some music and heard some new things. And I'd especially like them to just feel like they were part of the concert. So for me, that's really important. And I think part of the whole concert, scene is that you're kind of exchanging energy with the audience, right? So it's not just that you walk out on stage and play at people and the show is just about you and that's it. It's, I think, more that you're interacting with the audience and you get a feeling back from them, and that affects how you play. And I want, everyone in the room to feel that we all had a really special time together.
Yeah, what do you like to do after a concert? Do you have anything that you like to do that's non-music, non-guitar?
Well, I mean, right after the concert, I usually have a glass of wine. but
That's not what I meant. I mean, like you go home, everything's said and done. Do you do anything that doesn't include music?
oh yeah, I like to cook. I am a hiker, bird watcher. So I've got I enjoy reading. So there's lots of stuff that I do that isn't guitar focused.
I forgot to tell you, we had Meredith Moon on our podcast. She's another
Hmm.
guitarist. She's Gordon Lightfoot's daughter.
Yeah.
And she likes to cook, and she likes to cook for people, and she meets a whole lot of people while she's playing. And when we did the interview, she was in Florida,
Hmm.
and she had done the interview in her car, which was interesting. And obviously, Gordon passed away, so that was kind of hard for her, but that was quite an interesting interview. And yeah, when you mentioned cooking, what do you think of veganism?
Oh, I think that's it's a good choice if that's what you're into. I mean, I don't know what the question is. Like, it's fine. Eat what you want. Eat what makes you happy.
I
I mean,
like that.
I am mostly vegetarian myself because I'm not very impressed with the factory farming situation of the animals that wind up on our table. But um, yeah, I think people have a lot of different reasons for choosing veganism, and if they are happy with that choice and it's healthy for them, then that's what they should do.
Do
And
you
there's
think?
loads of delicious vegan food. I eat tons of it. So
I know my friend Armando is a staunch vegan, and he won't eat anything that isn't vegan, like
hmm,
eggs and milk,
yeah.
and he'll just eat rice and beans. So basically, but yeah, I don't eat meat around him. I try to respect his wishes. Like you may say, you can have meat if you want, but no, just in respect, I'll eat something else. Um, so before we end the stream, and we thank you very much for grazing our platform with your presence, lovely music. Everyone, we're going to link everything down below, including from her project with Azuline Duo with
Hmm.
Sarah Trificanti. Where do you find yourself a year from now?
Oh, a year from now. Well, I will be working on the next record. I've already got that planned. Um, And next fall, I should be doing an artist residency in the west coast of Canada, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I think I'll just keep on keeping on, I'm going to just keep touring, keep playing concerts, and keep just playing music and making music that I really love.
Yeah. With your four albums, A Dream of Color, Wake the Side, Canadiana, and Folklorica, can you tell us now about your next album when it's released for our audience? Go.
Well, I mean, the last album is still pretty fresh. It just came out July 13th, so that's just about 2 months ago. So I'm hoping everyone will have a listen to that. That's A Dream of Color. And then the new album, it's sort of very focused on a specific composer, Katrina Pratton, who was a British Victorian composer who wrote incredible music for the guitar. So it'll be music by her and her contemporaries, or people associated with her. But that's in the works right now. I'm working on touring the current album. I've got a lot of concerts coming up where I'll be playing all these new compositions that I commissioned with those beautiful projections of the paintings behind me, and that's really fun. I'm really proud of that project, and it was a really personal one. So I'm very happy that that music is out in the world, and that I get to share it with people.
Of course, and it's fun to compose, and it's fun to play, and definitely you're never going to tire of that one. And definitely, I know that I ask this question a lot. There's no retirement age for musicians. Like
Yeah,
you can't say, "Oh, I turned 65. I'm going to put my guitar away," and then it doesn't work
yeah.
like that. Because I know there's a 100-year-old doctor still practicing.
Hmm.
I mean, he's still got his wits about him. Why not? You can be 100 years old and be like, what, Mick Jagger's 80 years old. There's a video of him dancing on the stage like he did when he was 25, and he's 80
Absolutely.
doing that. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. He's not going to have like come out with his walker and say, I forget what I'm here for, you know.
Hmm.
So, but we really appreciate this being on our podcast, Emma, and thank you very much for speaking to me today.
Oh, you bet. And thanks so much for the chat. I really enjoyed it.
But thank you, Emma, very much. I really appreciate that. So we're going to end the stream, everyone. And maybe we might even have Sarah Trivicante on. Maybe we'll have both of you on together
We'd
and
love
have
it.
like Azuline duo actually on the podcast with Sarah as well.
You bet. You
Yeah, we
bet.
might do that. Thank you very
Sure.
much.
All right.
Appreciate that, Emma.
Thank you.
So have a wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful weekend, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
You bet.
Okay, just gotta